Warning, this video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and a guy that loves his Japanese noisemakers. Incoming random review in 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the TJOmega channel for day something of our daily content grind. I don't know which per se because this is going up while I am at MetroCon in Tampa, meaning this could have ended up at any point during my absence. I genuinely do not know, but suffice to say, we do have a toy to talk about because Hasbro's being nice to me. Hasbro's being nice enough to grant me new Cybertron toys, and while I do not yet have the Hotshot figure, we do have a brand new Vector Prime we can discuss, and I have been excited to get my hands on this. Vector Prime is one of my favorite designs from Cybertron because it does such a good job of emphasizing that he is an ancient Autobot that watches over time, and that is an interesting aesthetic to capture, and I really wanted to see how the brand new version managed to do the same. So, he is cast in a flat gray, like an off-white shade of plastic. This is a little bit more Games Workshop gray than I would like. The original Vector Prime had a very slight tint to him, just to make sure it wasn't completely grayed. And it added to the aged look of the toy. However, this is still doing a decent enough job because the goal to this toy is actually to be more animation accurate. Now, if you had the original US version, you had some really dark browns mixed in that didn't really work for the toy, I felt. But in the Japanese version, you had this more like copper brown kind of shade, which does look good and gets that ancient aesthetic across, but it does not look like he does in the show. In the show, he does have this shade of maroon going on that this toy actually captures pretty well. It also has a nice bit of gold painted on. You can see a lot of little details there. I really, really like all the gears that got sculpted into the new parts. Obviously, this is the G-axis mold, heavily retooled in order to look like Vector Prime, but you can tell just how much went into it to still get that character across. You can see the cockpit and the windshield there done up in a translucent blue that's got a bit of a sparkle to it. That maroon goes all the way down, a little bit more gold. You do see the exposed wiring. The original Vector Prime did not have cable management issues. I do still think it works with his more ancient kind of clockwork aesthetic in a way, and just kind of like continuing to look crude and not really like as solid as a standard Transformer is. It's not a detail I would have preferred, but I get why they felt like they could get away with, not doing anything to it. Beyond that, I'll go ahead and show you along the side of the figure. We do have some under kibble, which are his robot arms. You recall on the original Vector Prime toy, the under kibble was his legs, so this actually isn't too far off from his original silhouette. In fact, the only thing really off from the silhouette is the tail fin that's left over from G-axis. I think that's all just mushroom pegged on. You can yank it off if you want. It's not going to hurt the toy that bad. You also have those solar sails that are on the side. So these wing panels, just like the original US version, are not painted, which is unfortunate because it's one of the better looking details on the Galaxy Force version. However, what it does have is solid plastic. So this isn't going to bend and curl on you. It's actually firm stuff. So, congrats, that is actually improved from the original toy. Beyond that, form-wise, this does do a decent job of looking like Vector Prime and fitting the mold, so to speak. There are noticeable things that I would have preferred. I would have preferred the front end to be longer, of course, because that's his main feature in vehicle mode. But for the most part, it's not a bad job of actually using the design. Also like that he actually has thrusters here, which the original toy kind of didn't. Not as prominent as these, at least. Yeah, it's just not a bad design. It just really isn't. Also, if you're keeping track from the G-axis mold, those hinges that were left over, those don't do anything. Yeah, it's weird. I don't get it either. So, Vehicle mode itself is fine. We can do a little bit more with this. So he does have a sword that we could equip to it. However, the peg hole that is available here at the top, unfortunately, doesn't really fit. So here's the problem. Do you see that little tab sticking out? So that's the tab that's going to be on the panel holding his head. That's what holds it to the torso. And for some reason, the way this toy is engineered, it sticks up through that socket. You can arrange it while you transform it to avoid that, but it is a little bit tricky, and it's really not something you should have to do. So that hole typically is not available. And the one that's behind the actual cockpit, that's not really usable either. It's too shallow to peg anything into. It's unfortunate that that only leaves mounting points underneath the wings here and here, and I guess ports here as well, if you actually want to mount his sword, for instance. You only get one, so he's going to be a little bit weird looking, but it is a way of actually keeping track of it while he is in vehicle mode at the very least. We'll look at the sword in detail once we get into robot mode. I just want to show you that, yeah, as far as just like accessorizing, he's actually a little bit lacking. That said, he does have a few things we can do. Let's see if I can actually get a good shot of this. Behold, we have a brand new cyber key. It is based on his Galaxy Map version of the key. It is a very, very small version of it. If you look closely enough, you can see the planet emblems, as well as they can be rendered at this size. And just like the original US version, unpainted, of course. But fortunately, it does actually have a place. You can actually peg it into the top right there, so he does have the cyber key if you want him to use it. You'll also notice there is a port sticking up off of him. So that is an actual Minicon peg, and for this, I have broken out Safeguard so we can actually see how those work. Now, with the key in place, it's not really going to happen. Unfortunately, it just isn't, there isn't enough clearance to have both on there at the same time. So you can only power up your vector one way or another. And I'm currently having trouble getting this cyber key out of its current position. This is making me look very bad. I am trying to ramble so that this does not have to get completely edited out. This is not how that's supposed to go. Okay. Got it in one. All right, so with the key removed, yeah, Safeguard fits quite nicely. Just in case you actually want to break out that old Minicon and work it with the original, with the brand new version, you can do that. So that works well enough for me. Also, I'll tell you the robot mode chest is here, so if you need an extra spot for the cyber key to mount, you can go ahead and put it on the underside. So with that all out of the way, we need to transform him, because he does transform pretty significantly different from the way G-Axis did. So that's actually kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead by getting the wings out of the way and start disengaging tabs, which starts there at the arms. Go ahead and keep those down like so, out of the way for now. So the legs are pegged in here just at the knees, so I'll need to wiggle them a little bit in order to dislodge them, and then double hinge them out like so. They'll unclip from the feet, double hinge, get the feet out of the way so we can actually have room to double hinge them, and then make sure that they are in place. Pull the whole thing apart so we can form the legs. Tail fin goes up. That closes off the side. There we go. Now, for the torso, open up the arms like that. Go ahead and rotate the front end of that around. This is going to have some multiple sections to it. So, again, this is tabbed in from the top, so go ahead and disengage the top of the nose, the front of the nose cone from the midsection. Fold this back in order to reveal the head. Flip it all the way around. I'm going to go ahead and close the chest off and then bring the torso back together. Make sure it's all pressed in nice and firm. With that done, I'm going to put the arms in their appropriate locations. The shoulders have little tabs on them, so when you actually put the shoulder pauldrons in their place, make sure you feel that little click to make sure they're all in place. Rotate the waist all the way around. Hands. Simple flip out. Make sure you got some thumbnails for that. Do that again on the other side. If my thumbnails will cooperate. There we go. And then comes arranging this. So for starters, this panel folds up. That clicks in, peg to that socket. Then these... There's a few ways to do these, but generally they want you to hang it down like so. And this little tab is going to affix that arm into position. And then rotate that panel, that wing, all the way to the back. Do it again on that side, just like so. That is the transformation. That is our Vector Prime. So, needless to say, it's a far more involved transformation than the original Galaxy Force or Cybertron version of the toy, which was exceptionally simple. Very, very rudimentary transformation. Made sense for the character, made sense for how they worked in electronics into a Voyager-class toy. So, the new one, more satisfying transformation experience. There is quite a bit going on here, and as you can see, there's familiarity if you know the G-Axis toy, but it does do a lot of stuff on its own. There's a lot of retooling to make sure this toy feels different, and it does a pretty good job. Like, the end result definitely doesn't feel like G-Axis, right? So, as usual, we'll go ahead and show you along the back. Of course, he does have this part as back kibble, but that's pretty much just how Vector Prime is. The whole idea behind this was, in the original toy, was for these parts to kind of fill in like a cape for his silhouette. Now, admittedly, with the nose cone gone from the back side of the toy, he doesn't pull that off quite as well, but the idea is still there. At the very least, the kibble's all on like multi-hinged arms, so you can get out of the way if you need it. Let's go in close, and I will give you a look at the head sculpt, because it is a very nice render of Vector Prime's face. Remember, the original Vector Prime toy is designed to look somewhat like the original Autobot symbol, so a little bit of that is in this toy still. Good to see that they mention that. As long as we are close up like this, I'm just giving you a look at how the head has been sculpted and designed. Might as well show you some of the intricate details, because there's a lot of interesting sculpting going on Vector. You can see the extra gold that's been painted onto the shoulders. That's pretty accurate to how the original toy was, just rendered a little bit smaller. It's all the lines carved into his armor that makes him look more like that Cybertron aesthetic. In fact, I would say when you get to the greeble that's left over from G-Axis on the forearms here, it kind of feels a little bit different. It feels like two different art styles kind of clashing a little bit. So that's a little bit of a downside. It's not a deal breaker by any means. It's just something that you notice if you stare at it for too long. What I do like is how well the chest itself is done. The maroon and gold is painted on very well, and then you have the lines. Infamously, on the original Cybertron release, they took this beautiful like electric radar dish kind of design and just made it flat blue all the way around. Completely ignored the molding lines or the intended design. Hasbro has corrected themselves. This is pretty intricate for modern day Hasbro to actually pull off, so I'm very happy that they put the effort in. Looks really, really good. More gold, more maroon, and then yes, the wiring. Even the feet have been painted to look as much like the original toy as possible. That actually is a little bit of a reminiscent of how that toy was. So yeah, there's quite a bit to the figure. He is very well sculpted, very well detailed. For a retool, they went all out on him. I'm actually quite happy with that. I think this is the part where I run down the articulation, is it not? Because I want to go back into close-up for the accessories, because it's worth it. So, we have a ball-jointed head that lets you move up and down, left and right. All that works great. Universal shoulders. They're a little bit weird because it's that shoulder that hinges up at the torso and forward at the actual shoulder joint. So, there is good range of motion, but it does get awkward. And that, I never like when that happens. Bicep, nice 360. Elbow, well beyond the 90. Love to see that. Wrist rotates, and the fingers open. Anytime the fingers open, you know they had a little bit more room in the budget to work with. Waist works all the way around 360 degrees, universal joints in the hips, and then the thigh swivel is 360 degrees. Knee also well beyond 90 degrees. Ankle tilt works great. You get forward and back as well. That's a lot of articulation. The original toy, like I said, is on the simple side. And while Cybertron toys did have pretty good articulation levels, Vector Prime certainly did not enjoy them the way other toys did. He was very, very rudimentary, all things considered. So it's nice to actually have one that has a full, robust level of articulation, even a few points that are a little bit above the standard for today, which is great to see. Okay, I promised a close-in for the final accessories, so you've already seen the Cyber Key, so we can go ahead and plant that in its proper location. Just like on the original toy, it does have a home on Vector Prime's chest, though instead of pegging into his pelvis section, there are two tabs on the back side of the key that will now fit and hold the key like so. It is a little bit disappointing that this key doesn't mount the way that the traditional ones do, and it's the only one so far of the new Cyber Keys that has like a weirdness to like the backside of it. So all the others like lay flat on a table. This one props itself up a little bit. It's kind of funny. And then we have the sword. Let me go ahead and insert that into his hand. And the sword itself is actually really well sculpted and detailed. It's got that same glittery translucent blue plastic that looks really, really nice. Definitely fits his theme and aesthetics. And yeah, you got, just to keep it from being worn out or anything, you've got that maroon plastic for the handle. Now, if you want to arm him in this mode with a Minicon, you unfortunately cannot. He unfortunately does not have a spot for it, except for on the actual sword itself, which does have an actual Minicon peg. So it does look odd. It's unfortunate that I can't make Safeguard actually peg onto his forearm like he used to, but it's at least something. It's at least something. And that peg also comes in handy because he does have a 5mm port on his back. You can see there at the top. That will mount his sword if you don't want it in his hand. But that, my friends, we zoom out so we can finish this up. That is Vector Prime. So he does carry a little bit of oddity to him. And your experience with him is probably going to depend on how used you are to the previous Vector Primes. If you had only the Cybertron one, I would expect you'd be far happier with this one. But your brain can't help but compare like the deco and the solidity of the original Japanese version to this one. And you have to keep in mind, it is very different times these two were released in. Yeah, the original Vector is a very hefty, solid toy. It even has electronics. But this one has a level of animation accuracy in, at least in paint, if not in sculpt in some spots, that the original one absolutely lacks. So it's great to see that come in on this new version of the toy. And of course, far more articulated and scaled better to modern toys. So yeah, he definitely has a place in someone's collection, if only for the fact that, it's taking a toy that's already good in G-Axis and just giving it so many loving upgrades. Yeah, I'm happy with the toy, and I'm looking forward to just having this little display of modern Cybertron toys. Just gotta wait for that hotshot to roll in. So, that's what I think of the new Vector Prime, everybody. Pretty good. Thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.